yeah, it's been a really helpful thing to really dive into a project early on that you're really passionate about. That's all about creating impact, providing value. And yeah, you center it around that because if you're going into a project just to gain, for example, experience so that it looks good into your resume, it won't really translate into the work that you do. So I feel like you, as a young professional, you go into a project with a mindset that, oh, I want to add value. Oh, I want to make an impact. And so that it translates into something that's very fruitful and very enriching for the environment that you're in.
Welcome and good day. To our viewers, we have somebody extremely special. And why do I say she's special is because, and I don't know where I got this from. I just have to remember. I can't remember where I read it, but they said something very interesting about success. They said it relies on four things. It relies on what you know, who knows you, and who you are. And so today we'll be talking about our branding. And for this, we brought in Ace Bolo, who enjoys, solving problems and building from the ground up. Whether you're somebody just coming out of school or somebody like me who needs to create an identity for the social media. Ace, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ace, and I'm someone who thrives on tackling challenges and making things happen. So for me, I'm actually a graduating senior from the Ateneo de Manila University, and I study a degree on management with a specialization for marketing. I have a passion, a deep passion for startups and innovation. So I've dedicated my time to leading impactful projects. So currently, I'm the product lead at SwiftClaims. So it's an AI-driven B2B SaaS startup. So a B2B SaaS, it means it's a business-to-business software as a service. So it refers to software solutions provided on a subscription basis to other businesses rather than individual customers. So my role there is to oversee and develop essential verticals and streamline processes. So throughout my journey, I've come to appreciate the critical role of branding and identity that play in a startup success, whether it just goes beyond a logo or a tagline. It's about creating powerful, consistent perception that resonates with your audience. And we're going to talk more about that in a bit. So, yeah, thank you for the introduction, Paul.
You're most welcome, Ace, and that's a wonderful start. I'm seeing here that you have a lot to share with not only myself, but of course our audience who have tuned in today. Uh, so let's start with that. Well, I graduated a long time ago. It's very different. Okay, and I'm concerned about my career and what to do with it. Okay, now my story makes no sense anymore. But let's start with something a little more up to date, and maybe Ace can help some of our young professionals who are viewing us today. Maybe create a strong foundation for their career. Where would you start with that, Ace?
For me, a lot of the foundations, the skills, the soft skills, the technical skills that I developed over the years were grounded in my organizational experience in school. So it's a really good playing ground to help with that professional development after, like when you try and go into the real world, solve real problems. So back then, I was like a freshman going into college. I was very enthusiastic and I wanted to really make an impact. I was a freshman during the start of the pandemic. So it was also a challenge for me because everyone was adjusting, right? And then there was also like a lot of calamities that were happening. One note was the calamity that hit Cagayan in 2020 of November. So I've decided alongside some of my high school batchmates to do a donation drive and establish a nonprofit for relief aid victims of typhoons in the Philippines. So my role there was primarily marketing because that's where my professional passion lies in branding, social media, also like, public relations. So from there on, I was able to strategize and play around with my skills and also introduce that type of like working environment, that mindset as well. And at the end of the drive, we were able to garner about 150 in cash donations, aside from the in-kind donations that we received as well. So it was a very impactful thing, and it was a good way to establish that mindset as well. And then I used that for, my org applications in the orgs that I'm a part of, and also like my internship. So I feel like if I hadn't made that leap, it wouldn't be fruitful for me in terms of the application processes that I went through. It wouldn't have given me an edge. And also, yeah, it's been a really helpful thing to really dive into a project early on that you're really passionate about. That's all about creating impact, providing value. And yeah, you center it around that, because if you're going into a project just to gain, for example, experience so that it looks good into your resume, it won't really translate into the work that you do. So I feel like you, as a young professional, you go into a project with a mindset that, oh, I want to add value. Oh, I want to make an impact. And so that it translates into something that's very fruitful and very enriching for the environment that you're in. So, yeah.
Okay, actually, the idea of adding value is also gaining a lot of traction in businesses today. I think they got tired of the, they just make money model. Okay. So a lot of businesses are trying to rethink themselves and focus on adding value, not just shareholder value, if you want to say. Okay. Uh, and it's actually a pretty strong movement. So it's nice to know that I hope that the new generation has that same kind of mindset, that they want to bring value into the organizations that they join. One thing that I did learn in school was, sometimes it's not so much the outcome that's the issue. It's more of what have you learned in while doing it. Okay.
Definitely.
And maybe if you can come up with what are some of the main things that you learned other than your mindset? But by doing these fund drives and these other events or promotions, or how would you say, maybe events or drives that you initiated or joined.
So for me, what really helped me was three skills. I grounded my work on that, which is first, critical thinking, second, effective communication, and third, problem solving. So first, let's talk about critical thinking. It's something that's essential because it's the compass that helps you navigate complex solutions. In a professional context, this means taking time to analyze situations, question assumptions, and try and connect the dots to make informed decisions. Effective communication is very essential as well because your ability to communicate effectively transforms ideas into action, and it's something that bridges the gaps between different functions. So for example, in a startup environment, you might be pitching ideas to investors, collaborating across teams, or rallying your peers behind a new initiative. So it's a very crucial skill as well. And last would be problem solving. As a young professional, I think, or when you're going into college, you approach problems with a positive solution-oriented mindset, and that's key. It's not just about finding a quick fix, but thinking creatively and drawing on all your resources to get to where you want to be. So whether it's brainstorming in a team setting or tackling an unexpected hurdle alone, showing that you can navigate challenges makes you an indispensable talent in whether, yeah.
Okay, that's a number of things to unpack if you want to say, and many of them are actually still skills that are in need in any organization, regardless of level, especially communication. So let's try to view these one at a time. Let's first look at critical thinking. And today, I think one of the bigger challenges is there's too much information. And when that happens, usually the truth tends to sink to the bottom. It becomes more difficult to find, if you want to say, okay. Uh, Given that situation, are there any tips you can share with us on how to ensure that, we're actually getting down to the truth and not just jumping to the first, how would you say, thought that our unconscious bias agrees with?
The first tip I would give to everyone would be to ask questions. Be curious always and have that inquisitive mindset. So don't accept information at face value. Ask probing questions like, is there evidence that supports this thought, or is there an alternative perspective? Or perhaps there are other implications. So you ask, what are the other implications? Second would be, I think, to always clarify your understanding. I think a huge part of Filipino culture in the workplace is that we're kind of shy to ask questions, but that shouldn't be the case because you have to make sure you fully understand the problem or topic at hand before diving deeper. Because if you're going into a project kind of like in the mindset that you're faking it until you make it, it's not going to bid well for you and like the outcome of the project. So yeah, it helps you break down complex concepts into smaller, manageable parts and define any unclear terms. So that's good. And perhaps consider other perspectives as well, because if you widen your perspectives and the way that you think, you deliberately seek out and understand opposing views. So what this does is that it not only strengthens your argument, but it may also reveal blind spots in your reasoning. So you have to be very open-minded, adaptable, and flexible in the way you think. And yeah, I feel like if you use these tips, you'll be successful in any work that you do, whether it be branding or identity or going into a donation drive or just, tackling everyday life.
Again, you mentioned a couple of things that are also very, very interesting because, in my personal view, there's three things that I have in mind, always have in mind. One is, can you differentiate fact from fiction, which admittedly has become far more difficult today. Two is, and you also mentioned this in a certain way, is that you have the capacity to think you're wrong, not admit you're wrong, to think you're wrong. Okay, and usually this causes a block for people who've been very successful, or sometimes it's a block for even for academics because they're so stuck in their academic world that I'm right no matter what you say. Okay, and so it also becomes a challenge for some. But of those two, the third one is, do you have the capacity to hold in your mind several thoughts without the feeling to have any one of them be correct? Yeah, and that's those are actually very those take time to develop. Okay. But it's just a matter of really having a lot of people say they have an open mindset and all of that, but sometimes when you ask a question just based on the answer, you know that they don't have an open mindset. Okay, so
That's true.
just listen. Oh, this guy doesn't quite get it. But something very important you said also, Pinoys, we don't like to ask questions. It's not in us.
Indeed, that's true.
How does it work? The foreigner comes in and gives a big speech. Oh, any questions? Wala. Then when he leaves, hey, anong sabi ni so and so? right next to us, what we should be asking him. Okay.
And that's especially true as well with negotiations. For example, if you get a job offer, most Pinoys won't even try and negotiate. They'll be like thankful they even got the job. But I think that a skill that we all need to have as Filipinos is to really assert the value that we offer a company. And then, yeah, ask the right questions, train for everything, and then you get what you basically deserve, and then the value they provide. So
And that brings us to the other one about communication. Good communication is essential.
yes.
Whenever. The challenge with good communication is actually very difficult. It's,
Mhm.
it's you think you're communicating, but at the end of the day, it's what the other person perceives. It's not what you intend. Okay,
Yes.
so I could say whatever I like, and then if I come back to say, Ace, I didn't mean it. That's not the point. Okay.
Mhm.
Every time somebody says that, you missed it. If you say that's not what
Mhm.
you missed the whole issue with communication. Well,
Mhm.
when it comes to communication, other than the Pinoy habits that we have, okay, what are some stumbling blocks that you see when we communicate, especially
Sorry. Can,
for the younger people coming into the workforce, if you want to say.
Sorry, can you repeat the questions?
Sure. When it comes to communication, other than the ones we've mentioned, uh,
Mhm.
what are some other stumbling blocks when it comes to communication that especially the uh, the people just joining the workforce? What do you think are some of the main stumbling blocks that they face?
Stumbling blocks. Hmm. Can you give me 5 seconds to think about
Sure, I'll give you an example. Okay. You mentioned salary, which
that?
you should always negotiate. But let's say I having graduated from a, you know, top tier school, I have a
Mhm.
misconception of what my salary should be. But I'm confused
Yes.
because my friends are saying that, you graduated from this school, you should be able to ask this amount of money.
Mhm.
All right. Uh, a couple months back, I think, Sandro Marcos went to Globe to apply. Okay.
Mhm.
And they said,
Oh wow.
we have a job offer and the starting is 18,000. He
Uh-huh.
was upset because that's too little. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
uh, a company, you go to a company and the job offer is this. They're not going to change their salary. I don't care what they say because it's tiered. Okay.
Mhm.
But that's what they have. And let's say I'm coming there. I said, no, no, I should be able to go Globe and I need to start with this salary. Uh,
Mhm.
and instead of maybe communicating with it or communicating with the other person how you feel about the salary, you just say, never mind. And then after the 10th job offer, you finally realize that the only jobs available for somebody with my experience hanggang dito lang. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, when it comes to that situation, especially communicating, uh, let's say you want to negotiate the salary.
Mhm.
how would you suggest a person approaches that?
I feel like a stumbling block first relative to that kind of context is not knowing what value you provide. So it's all about having that value-driven mindset because if you cannot assert to yourself what the value you provide is, what skills you have that can make a company like money, because it all boils down to a capitalistic mindset.
Of course.
Companies
Yes.
hire people to make money for them or contribute in any other way that makes profit. If you cannot communicate that well into your, for example, resume, your curriculum vitae, and the interview that you have with a manager or the CEO, it provides a clear distinction on budget that's allocated to kind of the top talents and the talents that are like so and so. So I found that when you're able to kind of really research and leverage the skills that you have you're given more in terms of that, and also the capacity to negotiate. I think that it's something that a lot of hiring managers look for, especially if you're a young professional, because it is a valuable skill as well. For example, if you're going into a role that um, manages clients. So negotiation is a key skill because it provides that you're someone that would advocate for your client. You're not afraid to go into an uncomfortable position, an uncomfortable conversation with someone. Oh, like maybe you're negotiating a lower rate for like the service that you're trying to get from this person as a B2B startup or something. So yeah, it all boils down to how you present yourself and position yourself as a value adding individual. So yeah, it translates into like the first key steps of the hiring process. Your resume needs to have quantifiables, and then it needs to tell that narrative that, oh, your experience aligns with the role, that you need to really tailor that narrative to fit the role that you have. Because, for example, if you're going into marketing role and then you kind of like put mostly finance roles there, I mean, it can connect. There are transferable skills, but you have to prioritize the things or the roles that you did that had that um skills that were needed on the job. And also as well, I think that nowadays a lot of people, like young professionals, get frustrated when their resume, when they don't pass the resume stage. But I think the truth is nowadays, HR functions use AI to kind of scan through like the resumes because for example, I'll give you an example. There's something called Java and JavaScript in the coding world. So if the job description says that they're looking for someone that has JavaScript experience, or like they know this type of coding language. So if you put Java only on your resume, then it's not going to register into the AI like analyzation for the HR function to screen the candidates. So you have to be really careful and precise about the things that you do, especially going into today's world where AI has a lot of impact. And yeah, you have to be very adaptable, especially in that manner.
You know what's funny about the AI scanning through resumes? I recently read an article. It was from Corn Ferry, if you know Corn Ferry.
Mhm.
And yeah, this was funny. And they pointed out that a lot of companies they engaged AI to help them with the hiring process, especially to the screening process. But what they did not realize was that the people sending in their resumes were also using AI to write the resume. So what happened was we got this whole boatload of resumes that looked like excellent matches. Okay.
Mhm.
And so they were back to square one, they had to sort through it anyway. So I said,
Mhm.
I was kind of laughing at that because, yes, companies do use AI to scan through resumes, but at the same time, I could just go to AI and get me a perfect resume as well. Okay, here's the job
Mhm.
description. Here's my skill sets, make it match, and voila. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's an interesting, how do you say it, point of view, if you want to say. But the one thing that I'm still, and even not just the younger generation, and this happened. I was running a course in 2021. We were just coming out of COVID. A lot of people were still nervous about the whole situation. A lot of them people were still having, how do you call, they're struggling with their emotions about what had happened. And it was a course about time and stress. And I asked them straight up, how many of you want to be a billionaire? And of course,
Mhm.
all of them raised their hand, yay, I do. And immediately asked, what for? And none of them
Mhm.
could answer. Not one. Okay. Usually, when you encounter a new graduate, or a young professional, they're very clear about what they want to achieve.
Mhm.
Okay, I want to buy a house. I want to have, 10 million pesos in the bank. I want to be a
Mhm.
CEO. But that's not
Mhm.
the point. Your value is based on an aspiration. An aspiration is someone you want to be.
Yes.
Okay? And usually that takes a little while to figure out. You bump around a little bit first, trying to figure it out, okay? And sometimes that takes a little time. Uh, but for a young professional coming into the workforce or has started in the workforce, uh, oftentimes they're driven by an achievement.
Mhm.
Okay, what advice do you have for them in terms of the aspiration that they want, the kind of person they want to be? Because that's what value
Advices.
is.
Mhm. Hmm. Individuals that have achievement. Okay. I think we can ground first on having set clear and specific goals. Because if you're an achievement driven person, you have that kind of ambition. So you have to ensure that there's a framework that we're taught in school, right? So the SMART goal. So it has to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, in research. So I think we need to ground ourselves in that to actually have that clarity in terms of direction and tracking progress. And you also need to like list down your short-term and long-term goals. So if you list it down, for me, I always believe in this saying, when you list a problem down, it's half solved already. So when you list down a short-term goal, you're halfway already there. The long-term goal halfway already there when you list it down. So yeah, documenting goals, it would increase your commitment and serve as a constant reminder of what you aim to achieve. So other than that, you develop a strategic plan, you break down your goals, prioritize your tasks, and set deadlines. So something that would be really good as well is to cultivate that sense of discipline and consistency. So when you cultivate something like this, you would want to first try to kind of establish routines, create daily or weekly routines that align with your goals. So for me, I personally use Google Calendar. I actually outline everything that I do there so that I keep track of my routine and then my schedule, even like personal dinners with friends. I schedule it there so that I know like throughout the day what my agenda would be and I'm guided as well. So it leads me to this point that I have that you could also use productivity tools to enhance your time management skills. So an effective way of doing that, as I said, is a time blocking method. So for example, Google Calendar sheet or in the Google Calendar platform, you can allocate specific time slots for different activities. This is so that you can ensure that you're focused and then you're also efficient with your work periods. And lastly, would be to build a strong support network. So as an individual, we're social creatures and we need to surround ourselves with positive influences. You need to connect with like-minded individuals who inspire and motivate you. So perhaps you should also get yourself out there, engage in networking opportunities to build relationships that can open doors to new opportunities and collaboration. So for me, I tried putting myself out there, networking events and startup events in the startup scene, and it was very fruitful because some of the people there, they've helped me a lot in terms of where I am right now. Like I wouldn't be working where I am. I wouldn't have the opportunities that I had I not had that decision, had I not make that leap to put myself out there. Because naturally, personally, I'm kind of an introvert, and it's difficult for me to make that first conversation. But yeah, building that network of opportunities, it really opens doors. Like that would be really great.
I love to joke about the introvert and extrovert because a lot of people say they use it as a disclaimer. I'm an introvert. Obviously, I'm an
Mhm.
extrovert, but it's so funny. I go, look, as an introvert, the difference between an introvert and an extrovert, I go, as an introvert, you have to choose to speak. You have to decide.
Mhm.
As an extrovert,
Yes.
it's a sickness. You just have to talk. I go, "All
Yeah.
right, I think I know which one is better." Okay, but you're so but you make some very interesting points, especially about smart. And
Mhm.
it's an exercise I run actually frequently when I do my courses. And it's just I'm surprised at about how many people get it wrong. Period. Uh, but if we look at these, okay, you talk about specifics usually quite clear. And for me,
Mhm.
specific, there has to be a number. Okay, you
Yes.
can't you say I'm like for me, I want to lose weight, I have to go from this weight to that weight. Okay, then you say measurable. In that case, in my weight loss example, it's maybe I want to lose 1 kilo a week. Okay, that's the way I want.
Mhm.
Then the different words, some say attainable. Okay,
Mhm.
I prefer to use the word ambitious. Okay.
Mhm.
The interesting one is R. We look at R, we say relevant. And this is the tricky part because relevant to what?
Mhm.
Okay, and that's where the tricky part is because the what is the actual purpose as to why you're doing this.
Mhm.
It's then in my case, for example, when it goes back to weight, yes, I want to be healthy, but why do I want to be healthy? Because I want to live to 100, because my wife might live to 100 and I want to outlive her. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's a strong purpose. Okay. So that's why
Mhm.
it's relevant. And everything you do and measure now revolves around that relevance, if you want to say. Which brings us
Mhm.
back to time management. Time management is great. What you're doing is exactly what I recommend. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you have to understand what it is you're prioritizing first.
Yes.
Okay? Because if you have your priorities screwed up, you're just going to have a calendar full of activity and you'll still be wrong. Okay. Yes, you look busy, but at the same time, it's still mali. Okay. It's still off. Okay. Because the priority is not there. And
Mhm.
that's something a lot of, well, when I work with upper managers, that they're not very clear about what their priorities are, or maybe they know what they are, but they get stuck
Mhm.
with everyday, how do you say, turning off of fires events. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's smart, and I love the way you explained it and how to block the time. Those are all things that are very, very functional and excellent tips for the younger. For me, everybody's younger, by the way.
Mhm.
For the professionals
We're
coming in.
all young at heart, Paul.
I love that saying, but I say at my age, yes, age is a number, but when you wake up, it's a pretty big
Uh-huh.
number. Get out of bed, I can't jump out of bed anymore.
Mhm.
But still, you are right. It is still how would you say it's maybe a mental state if you want to say.
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
okay, so I also noticed in when you introduce yourself, you focus a lot on startups, and I've been through my fair share of startups, and I've been through my fair share of how would you say multinationals, these big established groups. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, what is it about a startup that you find that attracts you, or why do you find them interesting and attractive compared to a big multinational?
Hmm. Um, I've always had a love for learning. So for me, I'm always interested about new technologies, and I have a deep professional passion as well for the venture capital space, startups, and also AI. So what I like about startups is that you wear many hats, right? So jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one. So this saying perfectly captures what it's like to work in a startup. So you might have a job title like marketing associate, but don't be surprised if you find yourself working on a product development project one day or like customer support next, or maybe design work next. So I think that diversity and the flexibility of your roles can be demanding, but it's also a rare opportunity to learn different aspects of a business. So for someone like me that loves to learn, loves to do different things, I love the way that it shapes myself into something that's versatile. It gave me the skills that, will serve me all throughout my career because you can do marketing, you can do finance, you can do operations from that as well. So I like also that it has a fast-paced type of environment because in startups, priorities can shift, projects can pivot, and sometimes entire strategies are revised overnight because of the nature of the business. So adaptability is, you stay flexible and you stay resilient and you're ready to reframe challenges as opportunities and approach them with much enthusiasm. So I also like that it's not your typical 9 to 5. Startups are fueled by this something called entrepreneurial spirit, and it's where roles are fluid, structures evolve, and speed matters as well. So a quote that I really like about a very famous entrepreneur that we have seen in our lives is by Steve Jobs. He famously said, "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower." So in a startup, what I like about that is innovation isn't optional. It's the lifeblood of the company. So I think that being immersed in that environment means being prepared to contribute beyond your job description and think like a leader, even as a young professional. So if you start early on in a startup, I think you can tackle any challenge that may arise. So it's about, that professional development as well that is tailored to your preferences. So where would you really thrive? And for me, I made the decision to, like have myself in this environment because it's something that I know and I believe that I'll thrive.
Right.
So
My experience with startups, and I think you summarized it or you described it, is the one thing that startups always gave me was autonomy. Just Paul, fix the problem. Do what you like, but fix the problem. Okay, sure. And then I ran off and did what I did. If I made a mistake, yeah, okay, they get pissed off, fine. But it gave me a great deal of autonomy. And autonomy is something that even professionals in large companies want. They don't want to be micromanaged or being told what to do. Okay, then come on. If I were to ask you, do you think adults like being told what to do? They don't. Okay, so
That's true.
that's one of the things that startups that I really enjoyed about startups is that autonomy that you actually had. Uh, but I've also found that, I think it's more sometimes a personality issue because some people look for the order. They need not the that's not in my job description kind of thing. I mean, and I can also understand that. But then again, startups are still the lifeblood of most economies. Okay, all these small companies that get going, they're the ones that really drive the economy. Some other things that are there any other tips that maybe you can share with the generation coming into the workforce that that they can definitely take advantage of, especially when it comes to their branding, if you want to say.
In terms of branding,
Yes.
in terms of brand, one tip I would definitely give to the generation coming into the workforce is to enhance their communication skills. Because in terms of branding, if you enhance your personal communication skills, it's gonna translate into the work that you do. So written communication, verbal communication. So what are the necessary steps needed to have that message across? So if you're communicating to your manager well, communicating to your audience well, it translates into that kind of essential skill. So one thing also is to have a consistent way of communicating because consistency is key and also king to a strong personal brand. So you share valuable content, demonstrate your brand in person, maintain uniformity across the platforms that you serve. Because if, for example, you have a professional tone in one platform and then this tone and another, it doesn't really create that sense of cohesion in terms of the way you communicate your brand. Another tip that I would give to in terms of personal branding is to build your professional online presence. So in this age, your online presence is a significant aspect of your personal brand. So one way you can do that is to really dive into LinkedIn, create a profile that suits your goals and objectives. So for me, I wouldn't be here in this interview without LinkedIn because I was reached out via LinkedIn. So you have to have a complete profile, engage with content, share articles there to increase your visibility, showcase your achievements. And in that way, people can reach out to you and connect with you as well. So you can also develop a personal website if you're creative or a portfolio. It showcases your work and whether you're into like SEO, copywriting. So you can link that directly into the social media platforms that you have that are very useful to the professional objective that you have. So for example, Instagram or Behance, it's very ideal for creative professionals to display visual work. Or perhaps GitHub for developers to showcase coding projects and collaborate with others. So there are a lot of platforms that you can use nowadays to really communicate your personal brand effectively and the way that you identify as in terms of the professional landscape that you're in. So yeah.
Thank you. Those are extremely valuable, not just for young professionals, but people who are just getting involved in social media or LinkedIn, because people my age sometimes are doing it just now. Okay. Or decided to take it seriously, if you want to say. It's the tips you've shared with our viewers are excellent. And we'd love to hear from you more. Maybe we can have another conversation about something a little more specific. Maybe you could share
Mhm.
a specific example that you had and what you went through, if you want to say. But we could always schedule another interview.
Of
Otherwise,
course.
otherwise, Ace, how can our viewers reach you? Or do you have an event, or maybe there's a podcast you're doing? How can they do that? How can they reach you?
Oh, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out via LinkedIn. We can schedule like a coffee chat or like maybe a mini Zoom call if you're interested to know about like what tips I have or like my experiences to kind of deep dive into like jumpstarting your career or my thoughts in the startup community and branding and identity. I'd be more than willing to help our viewers with that. So yeah, if you can, we can collaborate on that and then I can send you my LinkedIn profile. So yeah.
I think we also have other platforms, so that would be an excellent subject to talk about. Okay,
Mhm.
and we definitely, because it's a bunch of old people there, so we definitely need a younger view. Okay, all right. You want to say, will be definitely more refreshing. And if it won't be myself, it'll be either Dinah or Dino, Dinah's son, who reach out to you about that. Right now, we're still kind of organizing it, so maybe in about a week or two, we'll be able to reach out to you about something about that.
Of course.
Otherwise, thank you. And Thank you so much for making time for this event. This may be a
Mhm.
little bit of an hour chatting. Been extremely fruitful, not only for myself and I'm sure for our viewers. And if you enjoyed what you saw today, please just hit the subscribe, follow, like. These are all very, very helpful for our channel as well as for Ace. And
Mhm.
our one moment, I need to check something real quick here. Our next episode will be with attorney Joseph Dodong Baduel, who'll be talking about influential leadership. And as always, learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas.